Fantastic. Just given the more than 50% of first-timers that are here at the conference, I thought it's really important to share some of the historical collaborative successes of AACB and give a little bit of an overview. And even those who have been here more times at this conference probably really don't know the background of the association. So on that note, just in the last 12 months, we actually celebrated our 30 years as an association, so we're actually into our 32nd now. And this is a really, really important point to note. The reason being that, you know, most associations in Australia only last 19 years. So from an advocacy perspective, the fact that we've existed for 30 years is really, really important. To compare against some of our colleagues in the business events and tourism space, as I mentioned just in my question earlier, ATEC was founded in 1972, is approximately 44 years old. I think the Accommodation Association is in that 40-year mark as well. Meetings and Events Australia, who you'd be more familiar with, was founded in 1975, so that's in the 40-year bracket. TTF, 1989, so it's only 27 years old. EEAA, 1991, 25 years old. And the PCO Association, founded in 2005, is just over 10 years old. So the fact that we've got 30 years history behind our belts is fantastic. Now, we've had a few different looks over the time, but our most recent logo really amplifies the theme about better together. In designing the logo, we actually made sure that we provided that connection or that link, because as your national body and as you're experiencing at this event, the whole benefit of this association is bringing together the convention bureaus from around the country. The AACB was formally established in 1985 by Australian Convention Bureau for Australian Convention Bureau. However, those who were here last year and heard from our inaugural Hall of Famers, David Weston and David Hall, heads of Convention Bureau were regularly meeting before then, possibly as early as 1979. In the early days, this meant Sydney, Melbourne, Hobart, Adelaide and Perth. This is one of the early meetings of the board, and a couple of our Hall of Famers on the left, David Weston, and sort of centre back left is David Hall. This is one of the early trade show promotions. I think if you get some hints from around there, that's the Australian Tourist Commission pulling together a stand at Los Angeles, driven predominantly by the bureaus of the time and Qantas. And funnily enough, if you walked in and had a look at the backdrop that we've got there with the map of Australia, completely by coincidence, the same thing had happened back here as well, standing in front of a map of Australia with the convention bureaus listed around the country. And as you can see on the left there, that's a very suave Jeff Donaghy, who's now heading up the International Convention Centre in Sydney. And on the right-hand side, David Phillips, who more recently represented Mackay, but at that stage was looking after Hobart and Tasmania. Again, another group photo here. On the left, not representing Cairns at the time, is Rob Jason, who I think was working at Albury-Wodonga, looking after the Convention Bureau there. And I guess this is the kind of end-of-night party that we'll probably experience at the gala dinner on Friday. But quite different outfits and taste in fashion, but really that concept of collaboration was born right from the start. I just thought it important to flag this little ad to show how things have changed over that time. In the early days, when we only had a handful of convention bureaus in Australia, it was really Qantas that was, and some of the airlines that were taking the lead on promoting Australia as a business events destination, because in the early days, the Australian Tourist Commission didn't really have a business events position, and it was the convention bureaus that actually brought that together to the Australian Tourist Commission. And most of this was also because in the early days, we didn't have the low airfares that we were talking about, a one-week wage to get you to London. So the biggest supporters of international travel at the time were for business. So they had to take the lead on the business events sector. The initial format of the AACB was a committee under the auspices of the ATC and the then existing Convention Bureau. Additional members of the committee included Qantas and Ansett, as I said. Meetings took place at the ATC head office in St Kilda Road, Melbourne, as opposed to Sydney. And the group was called END-B, which actually stood for the Establishment of a National Database. Its objective was to create a national database of domestic associations and find out what their rotation patterns were and if they had any international affiliations, so that both the Convention Bureau and the ATC could actually approach them in enticing them to attract their international conventions to the country. But if you think about it, how do you establish a database when most bureau at the time didn't even have a computer? These were the days of the typewriter. Fax machines even came later. So, you know, just the fact of moving to a word processor with a memory of 64 kilobytes was a huge step up. So the concept of bureaus working in the database world to capture critical information about associations around the world and Australia were probably one of the leaders of the uses of that format of technology. When the ATC head office moved to Sydney in the late 80s, the AACB appointed a full-time secretary and leased its first standalone office. An early focus of AACB members was lobbying at a federal and state level to an industry that's now referred to as business events. In order to lobby at any level, hard evidence through robust data is required. Since its inception, one of the key member benefits of the AACB delivered was in the form of benchmarking. One way to lobby state governments for more funding was to understand what the other state and territories were doing and actually go back to your government and saying, well, we need to increase our funding for our sector. As well as measure the various operational side of things, so revenue streams and bid performance. In the late 1990s, the Standard Performance Report was produced and established and distributed amongst members annually. This is now in its 18th year. So this collaborative approach that bureaus have had is in our blood. Over time, AACB also played a role in marketing, coordinating collective participation of members in a range of international trade shows. And again, this is before Business Events Australia existed within the Tourism Australia framework. And it was a very collaborative approach. It was always under the Team Australia umbrella. Moving forward, the first real formal approach to collaboration in the marketing space was under the Conventions Australia brand. And this was a multi-year arrangement where we had some significant players from around the country all working together in unison. With 12 founding partners, Conventions Australia grew to 14, with Brisbane Marketing and the Perth Convention Exhibition Centre coming on board. And this was the precursor to the Australia Associations project. The establishment of Conventions Australia brought the focus back onto marketing the business events sector, but also identified the importance of working coherently with Tourism Australia. The AAP, launched at AIM in 2010, was a 3-year, $1.8 million collaboration between Tourism Australia, the AACB and major convention centres, which aimed to market Australia more effectively in increasing the competitive association market. The program started with 16 partners, later joined by Business Events Tasmania. 4 key objectives were pursued: national brand marketing, increased delegate and partner attendance, develop an Asia-Pacific market, and insights into new opportunities. And so many achievements were realised under this collaboration. There was improved brand awareness. There was the Australia and Invitation brand that went out to market, launched at IMEX. An extranet was also produced where we shared case studies, image gallery and video library, fact sheets, and ambassador profiles. Targeted advertising was pursued, media engagement, and also further engagement with Australian associations, government departments, and ministerial advisors to raise the profile of the sector. Delegate boosting research and collateral toolkits were also a key achievement out of the collaboration, and research into the associations market, including China, was an outcome. In the final report, there was a conclusion, and I'll just read this out to show how important this step was to our sector. The Association Australia project was a necessary step in the evolution of finding a way for Australia to best grow its share of the international associations market. The project was a serious attempt to present a united face to this international marketplace and was held up by competing countries as an example of how to approach the challenge. The spirit of cooperation and genuine goodwill among competing agencies lays a strong foundation for working together into the future. And just speaking to Robin Hendry, who actually chaired the association, or the collaboration while she was with AACB, she said it wasn't just the fact that bureaus worked together, it was this political view that we were together as a united front, and that's something that we need to take forward from here. So fast forward to today, and the pendulum has swung the other way for AACB. It's moved away from marketing, now that we've got the professionalism of the Business Events Australia unit within Tourism Australia, to that of advocacy and influence. This started with a new strategic plan in 2012 and more recently reviewed last year in May 2015. As Lynn mentioned earlier, we have three current strategic goals and objectives: to promote the economic contribution and social impact of business events to Australia, to leverage our partnership with government, and to drive policy investment decisions about the business events sector. And finally, to drive sustainability through stakeholder engagement and relevance. As was mentioned earlier by Lynn, this transition really commenced with our undertaking of a key report in partnership with Deloitte Access Economics, and is still actually utilised today when I have meetings with various departments in Canberra. This will be one of the documents that they pull out. Furthermore, it was integral into the attracting business events to Australia framework that Lynn talked about, the role of government agencies and how the industry, rather than coming with problems, can work together with government to solve some of our key challenges of growing the pie. Last year, we took a step up and produced a pre-budget submission. This was an incredible collaborative journey. It involved myself and an external consultant having interviews with our membership right across the country. This resulted in 20 new policy ideas for the federal budget, for the business events industry. And with the lead up to the 2016 federal election in mind, we presented this as a pre-budget submission on behalf of the Convention Bureau of Australia. And if you look at the title, Convention Bureau Powering Collaboration, even before we had the theme of this conference, I think it really reinforces the efforts that we put forward. The 5 priorities that we reduced those 20 ideas down to was to attract international conventions through a federal bid fund. Our ask was for $40 million of new funding to achieve this over 4 years. As Lynn mentioned, a delegate bursary where we bring developing world delegates to international conventions to Australia. And this would be out of existing funding through the Aid for Trade budget if possible. Maximise Asian delegate attendance through ongoing visa reform. Reposition Australia as a knowledge economy through a dedicated marketing campaign where we asked for more funding again for Tourism Australia to achieve this, and also restore the EMDG rules around approved bodies to receive full funding for international marketing, which most bureaus are getting significant cuts back or reduced funding based on their own public and private structures that we all run. Our work in this space led to the conversation on behalf of the business events industry at the Business Events Summit at AIM this year, with all of our 5 priorities making the Business Events Council's election wish list. Since delivering AACB's pre-budget submission in February, we've produced a further 3 submissions to government, including Australia's Future in Research and Innovation, Australian Medical Research and Innovation Strategy, and a response to the Smart Cities Plan. And this is all to position business events as a key part of the economy. Now, none of this would be possible, as I mentioned earlier, without robust data. A key learning from the Deloitte report was that while we were collecting information on an annual basis from convention bureaus around the country, it was too limiting in its format and nature. So we had to change the system so we could get some more robust data and reports as a result. As such, the AACB invested in a new market intelligence system, which, if you don't know, collects your bid data on a quarterly basis, and we house that together as Switzerland. I don't get to see all of the raw data, that's housed away, but I am able to access some reporting out of that. And the first report that we released was on Global Meetings Industry Day in April, and it was the forward calendar that some of you may have seen. The exciting thing about the new system and the reports that we can pump out is that level of detail. So this slide here is about the international conventions coming in the forward calendar. So it's this slide, is actually about all conventions and incentive business. So everything that's on the forward calendar, and a snapshot of the quantums that we refer to in a tourism sense or tourism measurement. But part of the exciting element, particularly in the association space, was to actually be able to go to government and say, these are the industry types. This is what Convention Bureau do. We actually attract events into the future, which with leisure tourism, you're always looking in the rear vision mirror about measurement of what happened in the past and trying to predict the future. This is actually coming, and you can see the chart down the bottom, maybe the people on that side of the room can, that shows what the forward calendar looks like in terms of confirmed international business. And without this sort of information, we would not have been able to do a submission about the Medical Research Future Fund. The first part of the pie chart on the left shows that approximately 30% of confirmed business for Australia is in the medical space, which equates approximately to 90,000 delegates. Now, those 90,000 delegates are investment decision makers, global experts, key decision makers within the medical space. This is now information that we can take to government, educate the health minister that yes, you do have a part to play in this broader tourism industry, and it's within the business events sector where innovation is born. And if Australia wants to be seen as a leader in some of these spaces, then we need to get engagement of federal government at that level. While most of our key achievements in recent years have fallen within the first two priorities, the board and I are now working on a significant project relating to the third priority, and that's the association's long-term sustainability and options for Australia's business events lobby. Now, I'll just run through a few quick things before I finish up on our website. Now, how many people, put your hands up, have got the fantastic AACB website locked in as your homepage? Now, favourites. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it. And if we can flick over, I might see if I can do a live demo. Well, let's just to show you a couple of areas that you should be aware of. Live demonstration. Where's my... I'm probably on the wrong screen, am I? Oh, there we go. I've got an extended screen, so... Okay, so relatively new, but some areas that you should be aware of. There's a Bureau component over here where all of the AACB members are listed, and taking a while. You'll have to trust me. But just to go on about the Bureau pages, it's actually the second most visited part of the AACB site. So while we're not set up to be a referral site, the Bureau pages are relatively important to people who do come to our space. The other area of interest which you should take a look at in regards to those advocacy positions, and let's see if, here we go, they come up. So some of those submissions that we've put forward to government, you've got full access to under this advocacy section. So if you ever want to look at anything that we've submitted, particularly around how we connect business events to the Smart Cities plan of the federal government, then come to this space. The case studies section is relatively new, but I don't know if our internet is working to be able to change the pages. Again, maybe you've got more chance on your smartphones. But through collaboration of the members, we've actually collected 21 case studies and standardised them through the AACB site. So if you're looking to embark on case studies into the future, there's some sort of standardisation that we've applied to existing case studies, and definitely keep throwing them over to us because it shows that legacy benefit of the business events sector. Down here we have Rob Nelson on the AACB tweet. And also a new feature on the right-hand side here is called the upcoming events. So this is where we can show some of our key partners in terms of the international trade shows that we participate in. It also allows you, if you're doing road shows, to promote those. So you might see, I've left some of the older ones on here even though they're in the past, just so that I can show what we can do. But whether you're doing a road show over several cities domestically or you're attending an international trade show, it can be shown here. And what we actually do is if you're attending IMEX America, as that one just showed, we actually link that back to your Bureau page. So you'll have an events component on your Bureau page, and it will rotate through the events that you're attending or participating in or organising. So that's a key area that's being viewed more and more. And just in terms of the sense of collaboration, we heard that this is one of the only opportunities that we get to meet face-to-face. The only other opportunity probably would be in Australia, would be around the AIM trade show, and we try and take advantage of that. But there's 6 months in between each of those components that, while we make good connections here, we just simply don't use them on a regular basis. So what we've decided to do was investigate a little bit of a trial with Yammer, and we've trialled it with the Staff Conference Committee, and we've also trialled it with a research survey and questionnaire. So what we're allowed to do with Yammer for the first time is actually invite people outside of your own organisation. So I'm allowed to invite external stakeholders. And what we've got here on the left-hand side is a few concepts of special interest groups where you can have conversations. So what I'll be doing after this conference as part of our post-conference survey, I'll actually invite you all to connect through to the Yammer area, and we'll actually hold the survey on this area. And the opportunity for you to dial into one of these special interest groups will be available. And then the idea is for you throughout these 6 months periods where we're not together in a face-to-face environment is to throw up your challenges around research, throw up your challenges around regional destinations in that closed network, and continue that conversation on past here. But while we're running over time, and I have to wind things up a little bit, I just wanted to focus on education and the annual staff conference focus that AACB has had. It's amazing to think that over the past 3 decades of this association's existence, we're now in the 27th year of holding an annual conference. Now, I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And it's a key, the key to its success has been centred around collaboration from bureaus right across the country. The staff scholarships have also been an amazing, long-standing opportunity. We've got the AACB Staff Scholarship, which we'll hear from Hiebl later today, and hear an announcement at the gala dinner around the next winner. But we've also got a fantastic opportunity with DMAI, where a junior staff member is able to contribute through a YouTube entry, and they go in the running to attend the annual DMAI convention. And through all of these scholarships, we wouldn't be able to do them without the collaboration from the likes of Tourism Australia, Qantas, IMEX and DMAI. So we have to thank those guys for allowing some of our staff and facilitating these scholarship opportunities. But without any further ado, I might actually see if we can play the winning entry for this year's DMAI prize, entered in by Emma Perez from Cairns.